Hey guys, this is just a quick video taking some of the rhetorical analysis things that we've done so far, and I just want to talk about Brutus's Sililoquy from last week that you wrote about, and I'm going to provide you with a video about Brutus's funeral speech that you can kind of look at before you write your Anthony's funeral speech rhetorical analysis that you're going to get into today. So if you were to take the Sililoquy from the beginning of the last act, Act 2, where Brutus is alone in his orchard and he's deliberating on whether or not what his solutions are to the problem of Caesar. First, you look at the speaker. Obviously, Brutus is a Roman senator known for his honor, his integrity, his honesty, and that reputation is really the currency which he's purchased his place in Roman society, right? And he's known for putting Rome before himself. He's known for being a husband, a wise statesman, and he's also a Stoic. And basically, Stoicism is a philosophy that Brutus practices where you kind of sideline your emotions, you put your emotions aside, decision making, and you make your decisions out of logic. And you also, you try not to burden other people with your emotional displays and your emotions. So that's kind of a traditional part of the character of Brutus that you see. Some actors kind of portray him as very flat because of that. Others kind of try to avoid that, but it's traditionally part of the Brutus character. His purpose, obviously, is to explore his possible solutions to the problems presented by Caesar's ascent to power and its implications for Rome's fragile democracy. He's trying to figure out what he's supposed to do that at this point in time will be best for Rome, not just for him, but for Rome. In fact, he's putting his own personal implications aside for the good of Rome, right? It's not about what would be best for him. It's about what would be best for the country and the city. The audience, in the context of the play, the audience is himself, right? He's talking himself through that decision, but it's also, obviously, this is a play in front of a live audience, and Shakespeare's audiences of the 1600s would have a meaning from the speech as well. Shakespeare always has his audience in mind when he decides what scenes he should include, which scenes he should omit, and how to treat the scenes that he does include. Brutus's situation would have offered parallels to Shakespeare's audience because, as the source says, historical plays were understood to offer comment on contemporary matters. It's reasonable to conclude that Shakespeare was offering a warning to the nobility of his day, not that Queen Elizabeth was a tyrant, but that in the absence of an heir, the aspirations of ambitious nobles were only likely to worsen the ongoing trouble. So, Queen Elizabeth were to die without an heir, you would have a power vacuum and you would have a struggle a lot like what we're seeing in his portrayal of Rome. When Shakespeare wrote Julius Caesar in 1599, Queen Elizabeth is nearing her death and the end of her reign. Anxiety over the succession or who's going to be the next queen or king of the crown spreads across England. In the context of this anxiety, Shakespeare wrote Julius Caesar, a play whose events parallel the political shifts in Elizabethan England. Elizabeth's refusal to name a successor even led to speculations that England might erupt in a civil war, as Rome did following Caesar's death. That's a little bit of a spoiler there, but you probably saw that coming anyway. So the context in the action of the play, it's the quiet moments in private in his orchard where we see the man deliberating what act will decide the course of his life and the future of this country, right? And the other thing in the context is the audience. We're asking ourselves, how does this seemingly virtuous, seemingly responsible citizen with all this integrity come to the point where he's going to murder somebody, right? So we need that to complete our vision of the character in our mind and his motivations. The exigence, obviously within the act, The exigence is clear, right? And he says it pretty much himself, right? He has to act before this snake hatches, and Caesar gets his crown, and after that, he may not be able to ever stop Caesar, right? There may never be another opportunity when he's this vulnerable. So that's his exigence. His choices, he chooses to dismiss his own counterpoints when it comes to his solution for the Caesar problem, right? He says, I know no personal cause to spurn at him, but for the general. I don't have a reason to hate his personality, right? And the general is, the abuse of greatness is when it disjoins remorse from power. So when people act in a way that they don't regret their actions, or they allow their power to make them crazy and allow them to do whatever they feel like doing, right? That's when this is the abuse of power. And he says, I've never known Caesar to do that. To speak of Caesar, I've not known when his affection swayed more than his reason. So never seen him do that before. Well, he brings up that counterpoint, but he dismisses it. He doesn't really act on it, right? So he decides, his choices, I'll bear no color for the thing he is, fashion it thus. What he is, augmented, will run to this extremity, and he'll be like the serpent. And the whole image of the snake coming out in the bright day, on Caesar's bright day, he's going to be venomous and slithering all over, and you're going to have to watch where you walk. So he also makes another couple choices that are interesting, right? Things he leaves out. So, like, murder's wrong, right? Should I be murdering somebody? Should I be, contemplating cold-blooded murder? Another one is, what do the people of Rome have to say about whether or not they want a king? Democracy is better for some people, but, if the people want the stability and surety of a king, maybe they're allowed to have that. We don't like that as Americans, but and what if they're wrong about Caesar's intention? What if he's not going to become the thing that they're so afraid of? So he chooses to compare Caesar to this snake, and he takes away his humanity and invokes this cultural imagery that associates snakes with evil and venom. So he's not comparing him to a bunny rabbit, or he's not comparing him to something positive. He chooses this snake image, and it resonates with himself and the audience. So the appeals, he uses this logical appeal. And if you were going through the list of words that I gave you, you could pull out juxtaposition, and you could craft a sentence like this. Brutus juxtaposes the argument to what Caesar is now with what he will be, right, in his mind, to appeal to his desire to act against him. If you were looking at the tone and you looked at that tone list, you could pull up meditative as one of the tone words. You could pull up pensive, pessimistic, sad, suspicious. Those are all ones that you could choose. So that's just running through the rhetorical analysis kind of Spacecat idea that I'm hoping you guys did with one last week. And then I'm going to supply another video after this, which kind of breaks down Brutus's funeral speech, which you guys read. Hopefully put these kind of things together and help them, get them to help you when you write your Mark Antony one, which are going to start tonight. Thanks.